Oh. Well, welcome. I'm Perry Williams, and this is Hamilton County Newsmakers. And it's been a long time since I've been back in the studio doing talk shows, but I'm back again. And in fact, we're at a new location inside the Logan Street signs upstairs, and with a new studio. So this is actually my first show. Of course, we've only been in the studio for about 2 weeks. But my guest today is Holly Wheeler, and she is part of the Partnership for Healthy Hamilton County, and also handles the smoke-free Hamilton County, because that's become quite a problem here in Hamilton County and all over the state and all over the nation.
Right. We are really lucky to have received this grant funding from the State Department of Health. Even though Hamilton County has the lowest tobacco use rate in the state, there are still about 12% of our population here uses smokes cigarettes, but we also have 25% of our population are youth. And to prevent them from beginning to use tobacco is really, really important. And especially here, because we do have a low smoking rate, but we do tend to have a more affluent population. A lot of kids have moved on to e-cigarettes and other forms of tobacco. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that today, because it's a topic that not everybody is that familiar with. We keep hearing about them, but there's a lot of misinformation going back and forth, and I just think it would be helpful for people to know a little bit more about them.
Well, I agree, because to be quite honest, with me being in my 60s, in the same way with Jim, we grew up around cigarettes, but we don't know anything about e-cigarettes, or at least I don't. And you were telling me before the show started that you didn't know a whole lot about it before you started this program. So let's talk a little bit about that, and bring some of our viewers up to speed on some of the things that are going on out there that we as adults don't know anything about.
Well, one thing to remember is that even though we have a low smoking rate in this particular county, 1 in 4 youth across the state of Indiana still uses some kind of tobacco. So that's a quarter of our youth. That's a lot of kids who are still starting to use some form of tobacco. However, in the past 20 years, the use of regular cigarettes has really declined. Across the state, that's about 13% as of 2014. However, the use of e-cigarettes has eclipsed that. So about 16% of our youth are starting to use these kinds of products. And there's a lot of reasons. We have developed as a society to not accept smoking as much as we did at one point in time. But also, smoking is very obvious when you smoke a regular cigarette. And these products are often specifically marketed to youth on a number of different levels. They come in a lot of fruity, sweet flavors, which kids are attracted to. They're also very technological. Here's one particular one. They have a USB which charges them, and I can kind of go into the ins and outs of how these work on a broad level. But kids love this kind of stuff nowadays. It's very tech and it's very fun, and looking at an e-cigarette, it's very innocuous. It looks like a pen, and so they can take these pretty much anywhere. And because there isn't the same production of smoke like you get from a regular cigarette, people don't notice it as much. So they could take these to school and do it on the playground or between classes, and teachers or might not even realize what's happening.
I have a question, because
Sure.
The one thing with cigarettes today, with legislation and everything, and with the push of people to stop smoking cigarettes. There's been a real push that, they put tremendous amount of taxes on them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And most of your restaurants today are non-smoking,
Mm-hmm.
or retail stores. But it doesn't ban, those laws do not ban e-smoking, right?
No. All restaurants in the state of Indiana are smoke-free. All businesses are smoke-free. You can choose as a restaurant to make a policy where e-cigarettes are not included. And in fact, I just got an email the other day, last week. A woman went to a restaurant in Westfield. She actually called the State Department of Health and complained because there was someone vaping in there and the management didn't do anything. Well, they really can't unless they say you're not allowed to vape in this restaurant. They can't smoke for sure, but they still can vape unless the business owner takes that next step.
Which is a big step for a business owner, and I'm not sticking up for business owners, but Small Business USA today is struggling. It's especially in the restaurant business, because I have several friends that are in
Mm-hmm.
the privately owned restaurant business, and it's you walk that fine line. Am I going to step up and take care of this problem,
Mm-hmm.
or if I don't get too many complaints, am I going to let it continue in here until it becomes a huge problem?
Right.
And I can understand that from the businessman's perspective or businesswoman's. But if they had a situation where I'm not big on government always setting up the laws of that type of stuff, but if there are laws that are written into this, like there is in smoking cigarettes in buildings, I think it will probably help.
Yeah, I do too. And as a state, our laws cover restaurants and business establishments, but cities and counties can go beyond that and include bars and taverns and then private clubs like a VFW hall. We are still working on that here in Hamilton County, but for instance, if I talk about this, policy with a city or county, I would encourage them to include e-cigarettes definitely in what they do. We are really lucky too. We have many of our parks and public spaces which don't allow smoking here. So, we're ready to take the next step in terms of bars because we have so few. But at the same time, I think maybe part of it is when it comes to policy, not a lot of business owners, this isn't really on their radar yet. And so that's something that we still want to educate the community about.
But the vapor cigarettes still have nicotine, right?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to get this message out to our families, because you can actually control the amount of nicotine that you inhale in an e-cigarette from an e-cigarette, but it's still nicotine, which is the addictive substance which can hook you for life. We all know people who have tried to quit smoking many, many times. So it's starting that habit, and especially among youth, there is a greater likelihood that they will become addicted. The younger you start smoking, the more likely you are to become a lifelong smoker, the more likely you are to become a lifelong nicotine addict, pretty much. In fact, the Surgeon General put out a report on the use of e-cigarettes last December and what their impact is with youth. And it can lead to obviously the dual use, but also it can lead to mood changes because kids' brains aren't finished developing yet. And it also makes them more susceptible to other forms of drug use. It makes them susceptible to other forms of addiction. So that's why it's really important. People think these are safer, and in some ways you're not inhaling all those particulates, but at the same time it still has the addictive substance in it.
Now let's go through some of the products, because I'm not familiar with any of these products here.
And this
you have on the table here that
yeah.
And you were saying before the show that some of these products that are up here, not only can you use it for this, that you can use it for harder drugs and stuff. So let's talk a little bit about that, kind of show the people that how you go about doing it, because I don't even know.
Yeah, well, there are all different kinds of e-cigarettes, and these days, this is probably the most traditional form. Some of them look like a cigarette. A lot of them now look like this because they are less conspicuous. And pretty much it is, and I'm not going to be able to take it off, there is basically a battery. So I showed you the USB and the cord. There's a battery that charges, there's a battery which you charge, and then that heats a liquid, which is, you can buy these little packs. And the liquid is in here, and it heats it up, and then that turns it into a vapor. And the liquid is nicotine and then a chemical called propylene glycol. And propylene glycol is very common for use in foods and stuff like that. However, when it's heated, it degrades into other chemicals like formaldehyde. So once it's heated up, the propylene glycol and the nicotine in the vape juice is what they call it. It's not a real vapor. It's not like a humidifier. It's like an atomizer or a nebulizer. So those are things that someone who has an asthma attack, you go, so that's what that is. So that's how it goes down into the lungs, and that's how you inhale it pretty much. The thing is, as I mentioned with the propylene glycol, the substances in the vape juices are not regulated, or they're proclaimed safe for food, but nobody really knows what's going to happen if you inhale them. So a lot of these come in a lot of different flavors. Like I have cherry here, they have vanilla, they have mint, they have cinnamon, all sorts of different flavors. And these flavors, again, are okay to eat by the FDA, but again, they haven't been studied and approved for inhalation. And some of them can have pretty serious side effects to your lungs. So this is a kit here, and gosh, so here's the thing, and you plug it in, and then you put
just
it
like
in
your
here.
kids
You
plug
can
in their
put this
phone.
in your car.
Yeah.
Remember the old-fashioned cigarette lighters? Well, so we pretty much stick this in your car, just like a kid would plug in their phone. So this is a disposable. So some of them are reusable, some of them are disposable. Some of them are very elaborate. They look. Some of them are called vape tanks. They look like a tank, and people hang them around their neck and inhale the vape juice from them, and they can be extremely expensive, like a couple $100. But it's an investment because it's a very techy, very cool, kind of hip
Sort
thing.
of like it used to be years ago in pipe smoking.
Exactly. And they actually have e-pipes. So it's really crazy, all of the different kinds of things that there are. These are all pretty basic. This, however, is some vape juice, or the e-liquid. So if you had a more elaborate system, such as the big tank I mentioned, you would put that in there. So basically this is propylene glycol, nicotine, and maybe some water, and it all goes together. You put it in there, the battery heats up a coil, which makes it into a vapor, and then you inhale it through the atomizer. The problem with these are, and this says just juice, but a lot of them, again, are these very fruity flavors, these very bubblegum kind of flavors, very appealing to kids. And people take them home, they don't put the lids on tight, and little children have been known to ingest them, and it can cause death because nicotine is deadly in certain doses. So for those who do use these, please make sure you put them out of reach of kids because it can be very dangerous.
Well, the question I have, is there any age limitation on kids being able to purchase this equipment?
This is just like a regular cigarette, so it's 18 years old.
Okay.
Right, but if you think about purchasing behaviors of kids, the tobacco industry, they spend like 218 million dollars a year in advertising in Indiana alone. 95% of their budget is at point of sale, which is obviously where you buy it, convenience stores, gas stations, and they know that's where kids shop. On average, kids go there 2 to 3 times a week if they're in high school or grade school, or middle school, excuse me. So they concentrate their advertising on that, and this is where kids see this stuff. These kinds of products, they're locked up, but they don't have to be behind the counter like cigarettes are. So oftentimes you'll see them close to candy or other things that are appealing to youth. So there is this association that, is built over time that these things are fruity, fun, and they're not bad. So it's very much a point of sale way that they're getting to the kids these days.
So backing up a little bit, how do we educate our youth, okay? And at what age do we need to start doing that? Obviously, if you're working with 16, 17, 18-year-old students,
that's too late.
It's too late,
it's
okay?
Too late.
And they've developed habits, whether it's this or something else. They've pretty well mentally, as we know, as raising, I've raised children and you're raising children now, they pretty well, when they hit around 15, 16, know just about everything.
Yeah,
okay?
they do.
It's very hard to convince them that.
Yes.
So do we have programs set up that we're working on here in the county? And let's talk about a little bit of those partners that we're trying to combat these types.
Well, you're absolutely right. By the time they hit high school, it's almost too late. And the thing about high school is, by the time when they do turn 18, they're the ones who are buying for the younger kids. So it's not the retailers who are selling. The best age to get to kids about educating about tobacco is like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, because middle schoolers do use tobacco products, and so we need to get them early. As far as these products, I think we need to begin to really look at our curriculum. I know DARE, for instance, they have expressed some interest in me in learning more about these products, because the curriculum talks about traditional cigarettes and tobacco, but this is all new and it hasn't been updated. So I'm hoping to work with them to update their curriculum so they include things like this. I also work with the Boys and Girls Club. They have a very strong youth advocacy program there, and they educate them quite a bit about tobacco, including this, and including, they've helped me do some surveying as I go around the community and look at how it's marketed to kids, so it's raising their awareness of how it's being communicated to them. And I'm hoping to do more, as I mentioned with Westfield. I did do a program with them last spring, but I would love to expand the education to those kids with this. However, we kind of almost need to back up and start with the parents and the teachers, because they're not aware of this. And so I'm hoping over the next couple of years to do further outreach to educate tours, not just to kids, so that they're aware that this is going on.
Okay. Because, the one of the things I believe that DARE programs are in all the county schools.
Yes.
But Noblesville Boys and Girls Club is, that's a group that's here. But one of the groups in Westfield, which Mayor Cook's a very strong advocate. What about the Hamilton County Youth Assistance Program, where you can work with, those advocates can work with students and do those type of things, because that, normally that program's set up for at-risk children.
Right.
So,
yes, I would love to work more with them. We do other projects with Youth Assistance Program through Partnership for Healthy Hamilton County. I would love to work more with them because those kids are the ones who have a higher likelihood of turning to tobacco or other kinds of addictive substances.
Yeah, because I'm sure
just,
there's many programs.
Oh
in this
yeah,
county
yeah, there are.
And there's only one of you.
There's only one of me, but yes, that's what we do with PHHC is we look towards existing programs and say how can we add just an extra dimension of that to that so that we impact health to an even greater level.
Well, this is very interesting and very new to me. I mean, and I thought I'd been around. I knew quite a bit of stuff.
Oh wow!
In my wide swath through life, but this is an interesting topic, and the one thing that I wanted to do for you, and I think this is such a good program, and that we're trying to help everyone in this battle, because it is a battle. Okay?
It is.
And this could lead to many other things, but I want you to know that Hamilton County TV is always here with our network, and we're getting some pretty good followers now.
I know, it's great.
And people are aware of what we're doing and what we're trying to do. And so you have an open invitation, you or any of your group from Partnership for Healthy Hamilton County, to feel free to contact me and come on the show, and we'll talk about we talked about e-cigarettes, but I'm sure you guys are working on
I have a lot of other things out there that, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of new tobacco products. Janet, my associate from PHHC, she works on many different projects in the community, as I said, nutrition, physical activity, mental health, which is always a big topic nowadays, access to care, so helping people get where they need to go for their appointments to stay healthy. So we would love it, and we really appreciate this coverage today. And if we can answer anybody's questions about this, I am happy to do it. I
think, Jim, I see the email address on there.
Yep.
All right.
So we have that on the screen.
Uh-huh.
Also, I'm sure that is there a telephone number is there a telephone number up there, Jim?
I have the phone number.
Okay, is there a certain phone number that can call you, or
sure?
You feel free to give that out right now.
Yeah, it's 317-842-2603.
Okay, well, Holly, I'm really excited about doing this today, and I've been, I've talked for a while and haven't been able to get together with our schedules and everything, but I want to thank you for taking time out, because it looks like you got a very busy schedule and a lot of things to do, but there are still, even though we are a great county here, we still have problems, okay? Maybe not as large as some, but if we can help one youth or one adult to better themselves, we need to do that, and we'll just battle it one at a time here. And I want to thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
All right.
I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure
just to get the word out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that's the end here for Hamilton County Newsmakers. Next week's show will be at the same time, and my good friends from our town, Cicero, they got their dinner on the Causeway coming up in Cicero here pretty quick. So we'll want to talk about that, and they're doing a lot of great things in downtown Cicero. So we'll talk about that next week. And for Perry Williams, along with Holly Wheeler today, we'll see you next week.